I went there being faithful to food, not to be eyed up and ogled. It was enough to make me feel uncomfortable. I just stood there, I didn't know how to respond to that. I'm absolutely flabbergasted. This is a woman being edited out. This is, again, the woman gets silenced into extinction.
In less than a week, the controversial new series of MasterChef will air with Gregg Wallace and Torode as the hosts. That is despite the BBC sacking both of them earlier this month. But one person you won't see on screen is the contestant, Sarah Shafi, who has been edited out. Sarah reluctantly agreed to be removed from the series after the BBC confirmed that the 21st edition of the culinary series would be broadcast. I caught up with her earlier today and started by asking what she would have preferred to happen to this new series of MasterChef.
In an ideal world, what would have happened is that it would have been axed. The whole thing wouldn't have been aired out of respect for the victims and they've made those allegations that have been upheld.
What, just this series or the whole future of MasterChef?
I think it's not so much the whole future of MasterChef, although I think there needs to be a review of how complaints that are made about those prominent figures at the helm. If there's more than one complaint, there were nearly into the hundreds nearly of how what happens there. What's that process to protect people? That duty of care to protect people who are putting themselves in vulnerable positions.
How would scrapping this series contribute to that, though?
Well, the BBC would send out a strong message that they are not supporting people in those prominent positions or facilitating some sort of enabling environment. And I think that would help. It would be good. They've got to rebuild trust here. They've lost some trust. I go to the BBC. I watch lots of BBC because I trusted it. And for me, some of that trust has been broken.
They did a review, the BBC, and two high-profile presenters lost their jobs as a result. Is that not enough?
When you think about that, they're facing their justice now, but I strongly stand by powerful men in those powerful positions do not abuse in isolation. It happens because environments allow it to happen. And I'm calling on the BBC to look at some accountability here. How
did we end up in a situation where the show will be on it, but you're not in it? What sort of negotiations were there that resulted in that?
Good question. From the outset, I'm not sure how much I can really say about what happened in the show, but I wouldn't want to compromise that in any way. However, I think it's fair to say that my experience wasn't a good one, and I came away straight away with a sense of I do not want to be in that environment.
Can you give us a sense of why you felt that way?
I had a direct... For me, it wasn't a big thing, but it was enough to make me feel uncomfortable. Now, I am that woman, that menopausal woman of a certain age and of colour, who probably just doesn't. I'm not interested in that level of attention. For me, it was unwanted. I went there being faithful to food, not to be eyed up and ogled, and there was it just felt that was very uncomfortable for me.
And who are you accusing of doing that?
That was with Gregg Wallace.
Can you just give us a sense of what Gregg Wallace was doing that made you feel so bad?
So there was I think when it first started, there was a comment that was, I'd never met the man before, and it was like a throwaway comment that just made me feel a bit rabbit in the headlights of, said my name and then something about him and women, what you've heard. I can't remember verbatim what was said, but it was something about his kind of reputation with women, and it's true. And so I was like, I just stood there, I didn't know how to respond to that. And that I just thought, where's that come from? Why was he saying that to me? And then, later he came, it was a bit closer and made a comment that I was really amazing, and I thought, it's weird, but right, I'll take it. But I thought, I just don't like it. I felt it was off.
And did you say anything to him or make it clear to him that...
Didn't have the opportunity. I was just like, I just got on with my food. I was like, I don't know what this is, and they move on to someone else.
Because Banijay, the production company that makes MasterChef for the BBC, said that we've got no record of Sarah raising concerns with producers at the time of filming. And then they say they went through the rushes, so the unedited footage, and couldn't find any evidence there of what you're saying now.
Probably happened off camera.
So when you were on the set and you're filming MasterChef, and this is last September, did you feel Did you feel uncomfortable or did you feel unsafe? Where was it kind of on the scale between those two things?
I would say I felt uncomfortable. And, you know, it was, as I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting to just go and focus on food, and it didn't feel like that environment for me. It felt like a boys' game. That's how it really felt for me, and I wanted out. I didn't want to be in part of that, and I did speak on the phone either the day after or the day after that to MasterChef, and also as soon as I arrived back at my hotel, I spoke to my sister, I spoke to my niece, my daughter. So yeah, it's there, and this was my bubble that I was allowed to speak to.
And how do we end up in the situation where the show will be on next week, but you will be edited out of the episodes you're in? Was that a negotiation, a conversation? How did it work?
It was actually quite a heated conversation where I felt I was being pressurised into saying yes. So it was that these people's lives would be changed, you know, some people's lives. Well, there were 50 contestants. I'm one of them. My life hasn't changed. And it's probably the top 10 people. And I had suggested to them that they just created a new special show dedicated to those contestants, signalling the distancing from this unacceptable behaviour and making a stand that we're being accountable here. But instead, they said, we have a potential solution. And the solution was editing me out. I actually said, I'm absolutely flabbergasted. How do you think that is a solution? That's actually
Why are you so flabbergasted?
Because...
What was so wrong with that as a solution?
So this is a woman being edited out. You know, this is, again, the woman gets silenced into extinction. And it's happening time and time again. Oh, this is a solution. We can put our show out and we can shut her up. I'm sorry, but I said that's not a solution. It goes against the absolute root concern, which is about enabling environments. And the BBC getting away with it. So and that's why I'm here with the BBC now. Let's ask some questions. Well, let's sort this out together.
And happy to give you the platform. How did they then convince you that actually it was okay to edit you out? I mean, I can see you're not actually okay with it, but how did you reach that kind of compromise? I
reached the decision because soon after I'd had that phone call, I sent an email. This was before it was announced that it was going to be aired. By that time, they hadn't made any decision. It was just trying to... I felt like I was being coerced into saying, yes, go ahead then, go on then. But I was very firm that, you know, what you say it's life-changing for all those contestants. Well, I'd probably argue that, top 10 at best. What about the women? What about those 43 or those 83 women who have substantiated claims, have made, their lives might have changed for the worse? Where's the respect for them? They're talking about calling the contestants to see if they're okay with the show being aired. What about those victims who are going to be re-traumatised by seeing their perpetrators on television again? Did the BBC speak to them?
Very clearly, though, what is your message to the BBC about what you want them to do? Beyond that, you would just like them to pull the plug on this series of MasterChef. What can they do institutionally with other programmes? I'm
really glad you asked me that question, Adam. You know, we've got so much experience. The BBC has had so much experience of really, really difficult situations that involve sexual crimes with prominent figures. Where's the learning? What I want to see is learning. Learning can only come from self-awareness. The BBC needs to get a little bit more self-aware, and that's where accountability and growth can happen.
Will you stop watching BBC programmes as a result of this?
Good question. I want to watch Newsnight tonight. Look, I am here talking to the BBC. I've had media around me all day today, falling on the back of this. I could have gone anywhere I wanted, but I'm really glad to come back to the BBC because this is the home of where my angst is. So maybe this is the opportunity to actually be able to do something about this together.
Sarah, thank you very much. And the BBC said the decision to air the show was not easy and that showing the series in no way diminishes our view of the seriousness of the upheld findings against both presenters. And we put Sarah's allegations to Gregg Wallace, but he did not respond to our request for comment. He'd previously said his humour and language missed the mark. And he said, I never set out to harm or humiliate. I always tried to bring warmth and support to MasterChef on screen and off. And John Torode, who was also sacked as a MasterChef presenter earlier this month after an allegation against him for using an extremely racist term was upheld at an inquiry, he said he had no recollection of making the comment.